Chapter 4 Part 3. The silence in the cabin was absolute. Lena lay unnervingly still, her chest barely rising, her wide, vacant eyes fixed on the damp ceiling planks. Angela's desperate cry hung frozen in the air, swallowed by the drumming rain and the frantic hammering of her own heart. Time stretched, thin and brittle. Russo reacted first. He shouldered Angela aside, his thick fingers finding the pulse point on Lena's neck. His weathered face was grim, unreadable for an eternity. Then a subtle shift.
Weak. Thready. But there.
He tilted Lena's head back gently, listening for breath. A faint, whistling sigh escaped her lips. Breathing. Shallow but breathing. Get blankets. Keep her warm. Shock. Angela moved numbly, grabbing rough wool blankets, tucking them around her mother, her hands trembling. The softly glowing syringe lay discarded on the floor, its pearlescent light extinguished. Just an empty glass tube now. What have I done? Megan hovered, tears streaming silently. Is she gone inside? Too soon to tell, Russo muttered, his eyes never leaving Lena's pale face. Brain's a tricky thing. That brew. He shook his head, unable to articulate the horror of the unknown toxin interacting with the untested cure. A low groan came from the other bunk. Anthony thrashed weakly, his bandaged arm shifting. Sweat plastered his dark hair to his forehead. His face flushed a dangerous red against the white bandages. Cold, he mumbled, his voice thick, slurred. So cold. Russo cursed softly, crossing to him. He peeled back the gauze near Anthony's shoulder. The skin beneath was angry, swollen, streaks of red radiating outwards from the burn's edge. Pus oozed from a ruptured blister. Infection. Setting in fast. Fever spiking. He pressed the back of his hand to Anthony's burning forehead. Burning up. Need antibiotics. Proper ones. Now. The trawler, their sanctuary, suddenly felt like a trap. Lena suspended between life and a terrifying inner silence. Anthony succumbing to infection, both victims of the war against Eleanor, both depending on Angela's impossible choices. The dose-zero gamble hung in the air, a question mark etched in fear. A new sound pierced the cabin's tension. Not rain, not groans, but the rhythmic, powerful thrum of multiple marine engines approaching the cove. Heavy, deep-throated, not the sleek menace of the Moretti cutter. Russo snatched his pistol, moving swiftly to the porthole. He peered out, then let out a breath that was half growl, half sigh of profound relief. Well, I'll be damned. Angela joined him, emerging from the rain and mist, navigating the narrow channel into the cove with surprising skill. Wasn't a Coast Guard vessel or another attacker. It was a ragtag flotilla. Two sturdy, weathered fishing trawlers, paint peeling, nets piled high. A handful of smaller, tough-looking cabin cruisers. And leading them, a familiar, battered old tugboat, the Persephone, Old Man Peter's boat. Standing defiantly on the decks, braving the rain, were faces Angela knew. Mrs. Henderson, wrapped in an oilskin coat, her face set in lines of grim determination. Old Man Peters at the tug's wheel. Joe from the bait shop. Maria from the diner. Dozens of Harbor's End residents, their expressions a mix of fear, anger, and unwavering resolve. The Persephone pulled alongside the salty dog. Old Man Peters cupped his hands around his mouth, his voice carrying strong over the engines and rain. Russo, you and your cargo's still floatin'? Russo threw open the cabin door, leaning out. Barely Pete. Got wounded. Sick. Mrs. Henderson stepped forward on the tug's deck, her eyes sharp. We heard. The whole damn world heard Ben Moretti. We know what that witch did. What she's doin'. She pointed a gnarled finger towards the south. Her lawyers showed up at the clinic this morning. Shut it down. Tried to take records. We ran him out. Harbor's End ain't her lab, rats no more. A ragged cheer went up from the other boats. Maria held up a large, insulated medical cooler. Doc Evans sent this. From his private stash before he retired. Antibiotics. Painkillers. Sterile dressings. said give it to the Mitchell girl and the Moretti boy. Russo's shoulders sagged with relief. Throw a line. Supplies were transferred quickly, the precious medical cooler, boxes of food, fresh water, fuel cans. Faces peered towards the salty dog's cabin door, concern etched deep. How's Lena? Mrs. Henderson asked quietly as Russo took the cooler. Alive, Russo said, his voice rough. Took the medicine Robert left.
We don't know yet.
Mrs. Henderson nodded slowly, her gaze understanding the unspoken horror. And the boy. Burns infected. Feverish. Bring Old man Peters boomed. My place. Back room. Isolated. We got watch rotation set up. Harbor's End watches its own now. Eleanor sends her gardeners again. She'll find more than she bargained for. There was a fierce murmur of agreement from the gathered boats. Sanctuary. Real sanctuary. Offered not out of pity, but solidarity forged in the fire of shared truth. Angela felt a lump form in her throat, the first flicker of warmth against the pervasive cold dread. As they carefully transferred the still unresponsive Lena and the feverish, semi-conscious Anthony to the Persephone, Angela carried the empty dose zero syringe and Robert's notebook. Below deck on the tug, in a small, surprisingly clean back cabin, they settled Lena on a narrow cot. Anthony collapsed onto a pile of blankets on the floor, shivering violently despite the fever. Russo went to work immediately, opening the medical cooler. He prepped a powerful broad-spectrum antibiotic injection for Anthony, then turned to Lena, monitoring her vitals again. Her pulse was stronger now, her breathing deeper, more regular. But her eyes remained open, vacant, staring at nothing. Angela sat beside her mother, holding her limp hand, whispering reassurances she didn't feel. She turned on the small, ancient TV bolted to the cabin wall, flipping to a national news channel, needing to know the reach of their signal fire. Eleanor Moretti filled the screen. She sat in the impeccably controlled opulence of the Moretti Foundation headquarters, not a hair out of place, her expression a masterpiece of sorrowful dignity. She looked bereft. The picture of a grieving mother and grandmother, betrayed. My heart is broken, she was saying, her voice trembling with carefully calibrated emotion. To see my son, my troubled, beloved Anthony, manipulated by these desperate individuals, exploited in his fragile state, used to spread vicious, baseless lies about the foundation that bears our family name. A single, perfect tear tracked down her cheek. The tragic loss of my husband, Robert, and the struggles of my elder son, Benjamin, have been weaponized against us. The claims about Vitalix are grotesque fabrications. The so-called evidence is digital manipulation. The suffering of Harbor's End is real, and we are committed to helping, but not by spreading panic and falsehoods. The camera zoomed in, capturing the icy blue depths of her eyes, radiating sincerity and wounded nobility. To Angela Mitchell and her associates, I implore you, stop this madness.
Turn yourselves in.
Let Anthony receive the psychiatric care he so clearly needs. Let the authorities sort fact from dangerous fiction. Continuing this crusade only deepens the pain. Especially, her voice softened, laden with insidious concern, for those in delicate medical conditions who depend on stability and care. My thoughts are with Lena Mitchell tonight. I can only hope her daughter's reckless actions haven't tragically compromised the care she was receiving. The subtext was a scalpel. Your mother suffers because of you. Her silence is your fault. Angela felt a surge of pure, incandescent rage. The manipulation was breathtaking. The way Eleanor twisted concern into threat, positioned herself as the victim, the reasonable one. It was designed to turn public opinion, to sow doubt, to isolate them further. Suddenly, Lena's hand twitched in Angela's grasp. Angela looked down. Her mother's eyes were no longer vacant. They were focused, clear, and filled with a profound, weary sadness. They met Angela's. Lena's lips moved, forming silent words. Then, a whisper, thin but unmistakable. Liar. Relief, sharp and dizzying, flooded Angela. Mom? Can you hear me? Lena's gaze shifted slowly to the TV screen where Eleanor's flawless mask of concern still held court. Cold, Lena whispered, her voice raspy but lucid. So cold. Like the glass house. She squeezed Angela's hand weakly. The roses gone. Just quiet fog now. Thick. But quiet. She blinked slowly, her awareness stabilizing, the terrifying visions replaced by a heavy, post-storm calm. Dose Zero hadn't silenced her. It had pulled her back from the screaming static abyss. The risk had bought a fragile reprieve. A harsh gasp came from the floor. Anthony arched off the blankets, a strangled cry escaping him. His eyes were wide, terrified, staring at the ceiling fan as if it were a descending blade. "Make it stop," he gasped, clawing at his bandaged arm with his good hand. The buzzing. The static. It's inside my head. Like insects. Russo, who had just administered the antibiotic, grabbed Anthony's flailing hand. "Easy, kid. Easy." Fever dream. But Angela saw it. The raw terror in Anthony's eyes wasn't delirium. It was recognition. It was the same primal fear she'd seen in her mother's eyes when the static screamed. His pupils were dilated, his breath coming in short, panicked gasps. He wasn't looking at the fan, he was seeing something else. Something only he could perceive. As the image of Eleanor's perfectly composed face still dominated the TV screen, pleading for reason while subtly threatening Angela's mother, Anthony Moretti writhed on the floor of the tugboat cabin, consumed by an invisible storm crackling inside his own mind. The static hadn't been eradicated by the fire or the flight. Dose Zero had stabilized Lena Mitchell. But the catalyst, born from the bleeding stone and Robert's poison legacy, had found a new host. The static had shifted, and it was now screaming inside Eleanor's only remaining heir.